5:30 starts now.
Governor Malloy has been traveling across the state pushing his education reform plan, and many of you have a lot to say about some of his proposals.
And tonight the governor is answering your questions. Let's send it over to Mark Davis, who's live at the state capitol tonight. Mark.
Hi, Sonia and Darren. Good evening, everyone from the state capitol in Hartford. And thank you again very, very much for all of your questions at WTNH.com and at our Voice of the People hotline. And Governor Malloy, thank you very much for joining us again for another exclusive edition of Ask the Governor.
Great to be with you.
Let's get right to the first question. Let's get started. Here's the first question. It's from Christopher in Cheshire. He says, where did you get your data to support the statement, all you need to get tenure is to show up for 4 years? I am a teacher and mentor for 15 years. I have seen, pardon me, I have seen the hard work most teachers do to obtain tenure and those that have been asked to leave due to various problems. And I must say, I've heard a lot of comment about that remark.
But
it came from your speech.
Yeah, but let's examine the reality. If you start as a teacher, you have a 90-day period in which you can be let go for just about any reason. After that, you have to be proven to be incompetent. That's the reality. And what we do in our bill is to change that. First of all, we believe an initial teacher should have, the system employing an initial teacher should have a year to make that decision, not 90 days. I mean, we don't know a lot about students by the time Christmas comes around. The idea that we should only be measuring teachers for 90 days doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now listen, I understand people don't like the words, and words can be hurtful, and if I offended anyone, I apologize. But this idea that we have one standard, and the standard is either you're incompetent or you're not, and if you're not, you get tenure, doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right, let's get on to another question. My voice is coming back, so I'm good. Governor, this next viewer concern is more of a statement than a question. It focuses on part of your proposal that targets teachers' salaries. This is a person from Waterbury who wishes to remain anonymous, called our Voice of the People hotline. Listen.
Sure.
Governor Malloy's plan to overhaul the teachers' pay scale, etc., is way out of line. It's not appropriate. It is very detrimental to keeping good, excellent teachers in our school system. If it goes through the way it is currently written, we're going to lose a lot of Connecticut teachers to other states.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to lose teachers to other states. In fact, other states have done many of the things, if not all of the things that are in our package. When Massachusetts moved to reform education 10 years ago, there was no exodus of teachers from Massachusetts to Connecticut. When Rhode Island moved years ago, no exodus to our state. When New York moved several years ago, no exodus to our state. People are saying things because they're afraid of change. And I know that change is hard, but let's drill down for a second. Between the last time we measured and the current time that we measured graduation rates from high school in Connecticut have declined 6.8%. 6.8% decline. At the same time in Massachusetts, which has been working on reform for 10 years, went up 1.8%. There's a certain reality about what's going on in our school systems. In some of our state community colleges and universities, as many as 70% of the students coming in, having graduated from high school in Connecticut, are having to take remedial courses in math or writing. It doesn't make sense. In fact, they're using up scholarships, they're using up Pell Grants, they're using up financial aid to take courses that they don't even get credit for because we have not properly prepared them.
So your answer is it will not drive teachers out of state?
That's correct.
All right, next question. This is Michelle from Wolcott, also concerned about the impact that the education reform plan will have on teachers' pay. She emailed us at WTNH.com saying, what concerns most veteran teachers about this reform are fears that cash-strapped school districts will use the proposed changes to evaluations, pay, and certification to control their budgets by keeping large numbers of teachers at a lower level of pay or pushing them out the door altogether. You have said numerous times that you would prevent this from happening. How would you specifically stop this from happening? Is it even realistic to think you can stop?
Sure it is, because first of all, it would be illegal to do. I mean, that's the simple reality. You can't budget that way. You can't use age or number of years of service as a basis to discriminate. But I'll go one step further. I have offered time and time and time again to teachers, give me the language that you want that would prevent that from happening. And they've not given us any language. First and foremost, because it's illegal to begin with. Let me explain what's going on here. We're saying that teachers who are particularly outstanding at teaching should get extra pay. Now, that may be foreign as we currently conduct our business in Connecticut, but the idea that every teacher gets paid the exact same amount doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or that each increase simply comes with the passage of time, or in some cases receiving a degree that may not be terribly related to even the course that the teacher is teaching. What we want to do is reward excellent teaching. What we need to do in Connecticut is reward excellent teaching.
All right, next question from you at home. Many of our viewers have called and emailed into us about this next topic, teacher evaluations. This is from Stacy in Shelton. She says, I understand that teacher evaluations will be largely based on student performance. As you know, student performance is not only contingent upon best teaching practices, but also family values, student motivation, general work ethic, attendance, and other environmental and cognitive variables. How can districts fairly evaluate teachers based on the actions of groups of children who exhibit so many societal, cognitive, and emotional variables?
Well, you know, this is, well, first of all, sure, it's an important question, and this is the answer. We already have an agreement with the unions how to do evaluations. They already agreed to the framework. Now, they didn't do a particularly good job of informing their members, but after a 2-year process begun by a prior governor and approved by the legislature, we came to an evaluation framework. And when it was announced, both teachers' unions announced it, in fact heralded it, that this was the way to evaluate teachers. And in point of fact, with respect to test scores, out of a 100-point scale, test scores would equate to about 22.5 points. That's all. Now, I got to tell you, to hear people complain about using test scores to grade people, particularly when that's how every student in the system gets graded, is an interesting conversation to be having with a large group of people. Or to argue that tests shouldn't be important, try telling that to any one of the kids around the state right now who's waiting to hear from their first choice college or university and knows what their SAT scores were.
But what about these environmental societal issues that this writer writes about?
Well, I'm not sure what environmental or societal issues they're talking about, quite frankly. I can tell you in doing the town hall meetings, there's a lot of discussion about poverty. We're addressing poverty in the state of Connecticut. In fact, we had a $3.6 billion deficit last year. We balanced that budget without shifting burdens to local communities. We actually kept thousands of teachers employed who would have become unemployed as a result of a built-in reduction in the ECS educational cost-sharing grant by my predecessor, $270 million worth of teachers we kept employed. In this bill, we'll put another $123 million into education. We also then adopted the first earned income tax credit, which is distributing well over $100 million to the working poor of the state of Connecticut. We then passed paid sick days so that parents won't have to make a choice about going to school or leaving their children alone at home or having them go to school sick. We're addressing everything. And in this bill at 163 pages, we're addressing a lot of things on the education front as well.
I knew you'd bring those last two things up. All right, let's get to another question. This is from also about teacher evaluations. Paul from Westbrook called us on our News 8 hotline. Let's hear it. Oh, this one is not, okay. This one was via email. Okay, I'm corrected here. He says, with principals doing certification, what guarantee does a teacher have that the process will be fair and impartial without malice?
Well, first of all, this issue of certification, let's be very clear that principals cannot take away certification. That is a story out there that somebody started.
Principals can't.
And actually, right. Yeah. There is nothing relating certification, that is, whether someone can be a beginning teacher or not, in this bill. And let's be very clear as well, in this bill, for the first time in the history, there's a plan for evaluating principals. So they're going to be held to standards. And by the way, there was an agreement reached in the peak process on how to evaluate principals as well. But I mean, somebody has to have some responsibility for performance in a building. We know that parents are very important, students are very important, teachers are extremely important in the classroom, and principals are very important. Should we pretend that they're not?
All right, let's get to the next one. Bob in East Haven, this one is called on our Voice of the People hotline, leaving us this comment.
Yeah, my name is Bob from East Haven, and I want to thank Governor Malloy. It's about time. Teachers have the most powerful union in the country, and I think it's time to learn that the unions don't run the schools, the people and the government do. Thank you.
Well, you're asking me for a comment. Listen, I'm not against unions. What I'm for is the kids. And we have suffered a 6.8% decline in graduation rates. Our fourth graders are not are not increasing scores. In fact, they're decreasing scores on national tests. Up to 70% of high school graduates from Connecticut entering some of our colleges and universities are having to take remedial courses. One of the things I heard time and time and time again from employers is that we're not preparing the workforce for work. I mean, this is a gigantic problem, and we have got to come to grips with it because Massachusetts, one of our neighboring states, has done that. Rhode Island has done it. New York has done it. In fact, just since 2009, 31 states have addressed the issue of tenure, and 23 of those states have decided that evaluations and tenure go together.
We're going to take a break, but we're going to get to more of your questions. We're going to get into the issue of pre-K and some other things. More of your viewer questions coming up. But first, let's check in with Steve McLaughlin.
All right, thanks so much. We could see a few clouds and showers tonight, but great weather is coming up.